Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Espero
Hello,
que hoy
everybody.
esté siendo
How are you
un buen
today?
día, una buena
I
tarde, una
hope
buena
that
noche.
this
No
is a
sé desde
great
dónde se están
morning,
conectando.
afternoon,
Mi
or
nombre
day
es
today.
Victoria
I don't know where
Contreras,
you're
soy
connecting from. My
directora
name is
general
Victoria
de Conecta
Contreras.
Cultura.
I'm the
El
General
día de hoy
Director
estoy muy
from Conecta
honrada en
Cultura.
darles
I
la
am honored
bienvenida a este
to welcome you
importante
to
ciclo
this
encuentro
important
que se llama
cycle or
Sinergia
meeting,
Creativa.
which is a
Sinergia
creative
Creativa es un
synergy.
espacio de encuentro,
Creative
formación
synergy
e
is a space for
innovación.
meeting
Un
and
espacio que se
training.
construyó de
It's
manera
a
muy
space that was
relevante,
built
particularmente durante la pandemia,
particularly
cuyo
during
escopo
the
fue crear
pandemic. The
vinculación
idea
entre el
is to
sector creativo
generate
y
connections
cultural,
between the
además del sector
creative
tradicional
and cultural
latinoamericano.
sector and the
Esto es
traditional
importante
sectors
porque
in
es un
Latin
sector
America. This is very
que se ha
important
venido impulsando desde
because
Sinergia
this is
Creativa, que la
a mark that
inteligencia
has been
colectiva
pushed by
latinoamericana
this
se coloque
sector. The
como un
idea is
eje
to
de
have this
creación y de
creative
colaboración
intelligence
para
in Latin
generar
America
y
to be
explotar
placed in terms of
alternativas innovadoras
collaboration
para el
and to
desarrollo de la
exploit
región
new
en este
opportunities
tema
for
que
the
es tan
development of the
importante.
region
El día
in
de
this issue
ayer,
that
quienes
is so
vieron
important.
el encuentro el
Yesterday,
día de ayer, se
those
dieron
who
cuenta
followed the
que ayer
meeting
se trató
yesterday, maybe
sobre
you
el tema de la
discovered that
sinergia digital.
yesterday we talked
El
about
día de
digital
hoy,
synergy.
que es
Today,
el segundo día, hoy
which is the
1 de
second
junio del
day,
2022,
the
se va
first
a
June the
hablar de algo
1st
muy
of
relevante
2022,
que es
we're going to
la
talk
sinergia
about something that is
financiera.
very relevant, which is
Sabemos
financial
que
synergy.
en el mundo y
We
en
know
América
that in
Latina,
the world and in Latin
particularmente ahora en
America,
pandemia,
particularly
se
now
ha
during the
quedado más
pandemic,
claro, se ha
it
desnudado,
has been
digamos,
a lot
el
more clear, a lot
déficit
clearer,
que hay en
and it has become evident that there is a
proyectos, en
deficit
algunos
in
programas
certain
para
projects, in
crear
certain programs,
un
in order to
modelo de
create
sustentabilidad financiera que permita
model of
que los trabajadores y
sustainability,
las
financial
trabajadoras de la
sustainability that allow
vivan de una manera
workers of
mucho
culture to
más
live
digna,
in a
mejorada, etcétera.
with
Por lo
more
tanto,
dignity.
hoy Sinergia Creativa
So
se
today,
preocupa de poner el énfasis
creative
en cómo crear un modelo
synergy
o
is
unos modelos
placing
o cómo
emphasis
generarse
in
sinergias
creating
financieras
models
que puedan ser
or how to
sustentables.
create
Y también
financial
se va a hablar
synergies
de
that can be
inversión de impacto
sustainable.
y esquemas de donaciones
The
para
idea is to
financiamiento.
create
Entonces,
investment
primero
of
que
impact
nada,
and financial
vamos a
schemes
tener
for funding.
una encuesta.
The first thing is we're going to have a survey.
Esa encuesta
It
ustedes
circulated
se va a
before in that
presentar
survey. At first,
tanto los resultados originales como
we
los
will show
resultados
you the
finales
original results
para
and the final
entonces
results.
dar paso a lo que sería
And then
una cápsula introductoria que tenemos
we will
con
go to an
algunas personas que
introduction
grabaron, porque esto es un
capsule
proceso que se ha ido
with some people who
construyendo desde hace
recorded
un tiempo.
before, because this is
Y en
a
esa
process that
cápsula
we have been
introductoria se
building
va a
for a
hablar
long
cuáles
time.
son los
In that
principales
introduction capsule,
recursos que
we will
tiene
find what are the main
la
resources
propuesta de valor
that has to keep in mind a proposal of value when if you want to become an investment of impact. This is a very relevant question for those who are listening to us. Maybe you have wondered that the same thing. So I would like to start with the issue of the introduction capsule, and then right away after that I will show you the results of the survey that have been circulating around. If you have your mobile, you can use the QR code so that you can enter the link where you can vote. Again, I'm Victoria Contreras. Thank you for coming today. I'm sure it will be a very relevant second day. Once again, I want to tell you that you can follow us in our social media, in different platforms. You can find us in Twitter, Instagram, in Facebook, here in YouTube. So you can have a very active participation, even if we are in a digital form today. And let's start.
Hola, soy Máximo Jacobi, cofundador.
Hello, I'm Máximo Jacobi. I founded Black, the platform Creative Latin America. I'm very happy to welcome you today at this event, Creative Synergy. We made this with the Fábrica de Medios, the media factory, with other friends from the region. Second day, we're going to work on financial synergies so that we can think and rethink the sustainable models of funding for culture. Our second day is thinking about investment of impact and platforms of funding. What are the main resources, the main points that we have to consider when we create a project? value proposal of a creative project. So let's start by keeping it clear that in the stage where the project is. Very frequently, I see that you come asking for funding and the project are just starting. This is a big mistake. When the project is in the stage of idea, when it hasn't been grounded, they don't know the target audience, or they don't know the resources, the costs that they need to face, especially what is the business model that they're going to use in order to advance. And then the investors who are interested, or the sponsors that they could find, they will end up rejecting the project because it's only a good intention. If we're looking for funding, the rule is to be able to understand what the people funding are looking for, and so that we can meet between what I have to offer and what they want to fund, and the different funding sources. These are the mechanisms that we use mainly. First, funding based on what I know, what I'm familiar with. A second level based in private capital that has to understand what they are funding, and the third level is based on public policies of funding. With these three elements, this is what we take as a reference in order to advance in the process of validating, of testing the market, aiming at having our project in the future achieve self-sustainability. What is the main thing is how to make our project in the midterm or long term to be sustainable with a model of business that allows it to grow organically. What does organically mean? It should generate the necessary resources for them to reinvest them, so that we can have the impact that we are aiming for, and besides be able to grow more and more each time with our project, being able to replicate it and maybe being able to scale it. Those are the main concepts that I would like to leave you. The first thing is that it's a context, the context of my organization, Ataca Mágica. We want to create creative solutions for the challenges of communities. So our allies are companies, are the government and other organizations. And we want the communities to be happier, to be more connected with hope. That's where our programs and our projects come from. I think that even though there are no magical recipes, there are no charms for this, I think it is very important to create a value proposition that first we can take a few steps a little bit before creating such proposal. The first thing is connecting deeply with the sense of our organization, of our foundation, of our project. When it is connected with the sense, when we are very connected with this sense, it is easier to identify, I won't say opportunities, or business opportunities, or customer opportunities. I think we'll be connected with a sense, what we can see, those breaches in the community, those pains, we can identify them because they affect us as well. We feel we are in pain about them. When we can identify them, we can find our best allies in order to start with that task. The first thing is a first approach, which I would like to connect with an idea given by the poet Bradley. This idea that poetry shouldn't give us the sensation of discovering something new, but of remembering something that we had forgotten. And that's a very important idea in the idea of creating. We have to be very creative, connected with the sense. Don't forget that we are not creating something new. We remember something that we connect with ourselves. We want to solve that. We want to sort that out. When we are in the construction of a value proposition, there is a specific element that can be very useful. One of them is the customization. that is the co-building that solution with our allies and with our collaborators. We can find different tax incentives. Other organizations can also offer tax incentives. And this is related with the reduction of costs, of the challenge, of the value of sorting out the challenge for this community, saving time. Saving times. We can offer companies a service in the areas of social responsibility where they have this external team, other organizations that are going to sort out that problem, and together with them in this tax sense, it makes this more attractive, this idea more attractive. We should design methods and forms that allow us to be very transparent in order to reduce costs and to see how the program is being executed in the future. That is very interesting to explore. We have explored where we can see in real time what the advances are being, and this is a great incentive for us, is a challenge to be able to offer the organizations that are inviting us. Well, I think that the first thing for a project to be sustainable, it has to be a project that is done, that is attractive, globally attractive. These are projects that need a lot of capital to be funded. Then what we have found, and it works very well for us, is look within, look at what we are as Latin America, and try to tell our own stories. That's what we did. In Aimbo, for example, Aimbo, it's a story that is built based on myths and legends from the Peruvian Amazon. And of course, we try to give this a more global design. But it was a little bit an idea of some people from Los Angeles who helped us, and I think that communication helped us very well. It worked very well, because even before doing the movie, Aimbo was pre-sold to over half of the planet.
Part of the financing of the film was actually self-financed with pre-sales, and that self-funding happened in different film markets. We started with Ventana Sur, then with a film market in Berlin, etc. And basically what we showed in all these markets where we started doing pre-sales was to have a good quality teaser, which is something that really worked. We actually did up to 3 teasers to show an idea of what the film was about in terms of its quality, its theme, and it helped distributors around the world to get interested in pre-buying it. It helped us have a better perspective. Because if once you finish the film, only by then you start looking for cinemas, it's more complicated. So pre-sales helped us finance the film and also to ensure screens later on. So that is why it was important to have good designs, a good concept, and a very well drafted script so that we would have enough material for funding.
Hola nuevamente.
Hello, back again. Just to remind you, I'm Victoria Contreras, Chief Executive Officer of Conecta Cultura. Welcome to our second day. We listened to very interesting words about financial synergy, and I would like to invite you to go to the link in YouTube that goes to a QR code where you can answer to a survey. We're very interested in knowing what you think about it. And the question is, how much capital would you invest in a creative project associated with the environment? So please go to that link and take the chance to answer to it. Some of you have already answered to it, and here we have some metrics. For example, we have the blue bar that says that up to 50%, sorry, up to $50, 25% replied. And then we have the pink bar with 60% between 50 and 100 US dollars, and between 100 to 500 US, 0%. Of course, this tells us about the precariousness of the market and maybe the lack of knowledge about this kind of investments. And then we have 25% represented by the yellow bar that represents investments of more than $500. As you can see, we have very interesting results here. But we will see later on what the results are. And now I would like to give the floor to our expert panel. It's going to be moderated by Barbara Russi. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll give the floor to the panel.
Ok, preparados, 30 segundos. 30 seconds, please. Get ready.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have a great roundtable to talk about impact investment for funding the creative sector. We have very interesting guests for today, and we're going to talk about financial synergy, impact investing for funding the creative sector. And we have Ekaterina Travinka. Ekaterina is the coordinator of culture, creative industries, and local development from OECD, France.
She coordinates the work on culture, creative industries, and local development within OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SME, Regions and Cities. She was previously manager of the OECD Forum on Partnership and Local Development. As a policy analyst at the Local Economic and Employment Development Program of the OECD, Ekaterina contributed to international policy reviews on employment and skills, focusing on local strategies to support youth employment. Ekaterina joined the OECD in 1997 to work on the entrepreneurship and the SME development policy assessment in Central and Eastern Europe. Before joining the OECD, she worked in the International Training Center of the International Labour Organization. Así que bueno, very welcome, Ekaterina. We also have, también tenemos a
Thank you very much, Ekaterina. We also have Ana Gabriela Chinchilla, Director of Strategic Alliances from Alterna. Before that, she worked for 5 years on programs for SMEs development in Guatemala, and also at the Ministry of Finance and Economy. She also worked as a data analyst for different institutions in Guatemala and France, and she's also been a professor.
Cuenta con una licenciatura en Economía por la Universidad de Montpellier y una maestría en Economía de la Universidad.
She has a qualitative diploma from a university in France. She's also responsible for developing strategies to face challenges in the socioeconomic aspect. From this role, Ana Gabriela has led the work at Alterna. And we also have at the table Sebastián Cantuarias, Executive Director of Latin American Ethical Banking. He has talked in different platforms talking about finance, and he's also developed he has also worked in different areas, like in the wine sector. He's also worked in different areas at Habitat and also the Faculty of Chile. He's also very extensive experience in social development. Thank you very much for joining this roundtable. Now we'll give the floor to Ekaterina so she can tell us about impact investment from the perspective from the OECD. Then we'll give the floor to Ana Gabriela and then Sebastián. Welcome, Ekaterina. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much in Spanish, but it's really a pleasure to be with you today with you all. Yes, maybe what I wanted to do in this 10 minutes that you give me is to provide some background, maybe some context on where we stand, well, okay, in the OECD countries in terms of public and private funding for cultural and creative sectors, maybe some kind of broad background for you. Maybe, but before I go into this, I just wanted to say just a couple of words on who we are and what we do. Well, OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, we are based in Paris. We work with our 38 member countries, so it's Europe, it's Americas, well, a lot of North America and Australasia as well. Culture is a bit of a new field for us, and we really look into culture as an economic driver. So of course we focus on data, measuring the economic footprint of cultural and creative sectors, and how policies beyond cultural policies like business development, innovation, can support culture and also use culture to achieve their own goals. So yeah, let's maybe think now why, well, culture and creative sectors need to be funded, and maybe a bit of a historical perspective there. Well, obviously they need public funding because of as a recognition of these direct and indirect benefits that they bring. Well, direct in terms of jobs and incomes and turnover, GVA, but also indirect in terms of social inclusion, well-being, and many other impacts. So governments have been supporting with their money cultural and creative sectors to ensure this fair access and preservation of cultural heritage for future generations, a little bit like a married good, like health or education. But of course, over the past couple of decades, with this growing recognition of the economic power of culture, these policies are shifting towards more industrial type of policies and local regeneration policies. But maybe let's have a quick look at the data. So we can see that across OECD countries, government spending on cultural services has been decreasing, in fact, over the past years, and represent only 1.2% of total spending, not a shockingly enormous amount of funding. Maybe if we take even a longer term perspective, this funding has been increasing. So it was going up before the global financial crisis, already a decade ago, then obviously dropped, but it has never reached the pre-global financial crisis levels. So that's a bit of a not such a happy story there. What we see as well is that shares of subnational governments, well, cities and regions and provinces spending on cultural services are much higher than national shares, and they represent 60% of total public spending there, and they spend 3% of their total spending on cultural services as compared to 1.2%. So they are pretty important players there. Well, another source of funding for culture and creative sectors is, of course, our own money as household, as families, how much we spent on culture and recreation. And we were spending quite a lot more on these items, so more than on hotels and furnishing and household equipment or clothing and footwear. And household spending on culture and recreation was growing twice as fast as overall spending before the pandemic. And clearly COVID-19 left a mark there, with household spending dropping by 30% on average in 2020, obviously. Maybe it's good also to remind ourselves that these sectors, well, the sectors that we call cultural and creative, are so diverse. So they include libraries, theatres, archives, but also visual artists, design companies, architectural companies. So they have very different business models, cost structures, and financing needs are very diverse as well. And maybe it's good to have also an overview of this financial ecosystem and how it is evolving over time. So where do they get the money from? So maybe to simplify a little bit, we can bring this mixes of funding and funding sources into this the following categories. Well, self-finance, and this are the famous family, friends, and fools, of course. Then public support is very important, has been important, and is still quite important, and it can take the form of, well, direct grants and subsidies, obviously, but also other instruments. For example, we see tax instruments. For example, in Colombia in 2017, you introduced this tax relief for creative startups, which was pretty successful as far as we can see. In Italy, Art Bonus is a tax incentive for the donations. Quite an effective measure with a lot of impact locally as well. In Wallonia, here in Europe, in Belgium, these creativity vouchers were introduced to support, well, let's call them normal SMEs, to work with creative firms. In Japan, there is another tax incentive, it's so-called hometown tax, which in fact people can reduce their residency tax if they provide donations to another municipality, including for cultural projects. And then there are all sorts of different voucher schemes. For example, in France, during the pandemic, they introduced this so-called Pass Culture to support the access of young people to museums, cinemas, etc., when those were open, obviously.
I don't know if I'm sorry, but yeah. You're not projecting the PPT. They can't see it. Is there any chance we can
so you can only hear me, right?
Only hear you, yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
They just told me, yes, they just wrote to me.
Oh, my apologies for this.
It's fine.
Let me try to share it again.
I'm going to be checking with the organizers if they see the... Pido a los que coordinan que nos den el ok si cuando vean por si yo estoy en un lugar en donde no llego a ver la presentación.
Let me try it now again, maybe. I don't know if it's a bit better now.
A ver, perfecto.
A ver.
Ahí vamos.
Sí.
Muy bien.
Yes, so I was, now you can see the picture with all these different sources of funding for creative sectors. And I'm not going to maybe go through all of them again. And I think I stopped when I was talking about debt finance. And we know that for creative firms, it's often difficult to access credits, well, for different reasons like valuation of intangible assets or project-based work. So countries across OECD have been experimenting with different programs. For example, Creative England investment program, they offer startup loans exclusively to creative firms to correct these issues. Well, of course, equity finance is another source of money, business angels, venture capital. And for example, in Korea, there is this Motai fund, which is a matching fund for venture capital investment in different sectors, including cultural sectors. And of course, well, other sources of funding, and it's a very big source of funding there when we're talking about philanthropy that has been supporting culture for centuries, of course, sponsorship, patronage, and of course philanthropy is now very strong in North America, but is also gaining ground in Europe, where foundations are moving from funding projects to managing their own projects, helping city regeneration, for example, and other things. And of course, crowdfunding is also maybe relatively small, but yet quite important source of funding for creators and for creative firms to help raise collateral, to help with startup phase, obviously, and to demonstrate also the market potential to investors. Maybe some of the key takeaways from this is that, in fact, well, as business models of creative firms are increasingly becoming mixed, so sometimes they work with non-for-profit objectives, sometimes they're very much for profit. They also try to rely on a mix funding from different sources, and maybe the role of the public sector there is, of course, to provide stable regulation, but also to orchestrate these different funding sources and work towards channeling money, channeling investment to where it's most needed, and to the areas of social impact. And Barbara, maybe I stop there.
Thank you very much, Ekaterina. Very resourceful, the whole presentation. Thank you. Y después ahora le voy a dar la palabra a Ana Gabriela, que nos va a contar un poco el caso de Alterna y de Cromática.
About the case of Alterna and Cromática, who have been working and making a lot of noise in the area in Central America, in Guatemala. So María Pilar, please, whenever you want.
Si querés.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Alterna, and specifically about the program and the focus we have in creative economy. Well, we are a platform of social innovation. We want to work on breaches, systemic breaches. We work in the Caribbean and in Central America, and with some services of companies accompaniment. We work with the impact that they can achieve. Our mission as Impact is to channel businesses of impact. We want to achieve positive impact and achieve it in any context. Where do we cultivate in terms of sectors rather than geographically? We call them our drivers or our intersections. We work to achieve futures, build futures for everybody. There are differences in everybody, especially in Latin America, where there is a lot of inequality. Not everybody has the same possibilities, and we think that should change. And on the other hand, how can we build a planet forever? And in that line, we have focused on 5 intersections. When we talk about a future for everybody, we're talking about humans in movement. We're movement in the space to deal with issues with immigration and tourism, but also humans in evolution. That is in terms of the population growth and young populations. Another approach that we have, and that is very important for this, is creative horizons, how creativity can show the potential of people, not only in economic terms or social terms, but what can be modified in the future of people. That's why we focus on this issue. And in A Planet Forever, we work on the sustainability. What we have done is that we have created and implemented over 50 programs until today to impact key crucial issues in these different intersections that I have mentioned. As a complement to this service, to this methodology of cultivation, we have these companies that we have connected with access and opportunities. One is funding through two different funds that we have. These funds are aimed at the missing view, those companies that still don't get any credits from the traditional banks, but maybe they are a lot bigger than and the microfinancing that are very frequent in Central America is not enough. We have two funds. Catalyzer is one of them. We have tickets between $15,000 and $50,000, and they aim at different. The focus is in Central America, and it is supported by ARA and Alguius, and another fund which is a little bit higher customer is the second level after Catalyzer. There are tickets between $100,000 and $500,000. There are issues of convertible notes and debt. We expanded it into Mexico as well. This one is just beginning. We don't have any credit for the moment, but we want to expand it to Mexico and Central America. And this one comes in alliance with a company of private funding in Central America. Besides that, after 7 years, we have been organizing the Latin American Forum of Impact Investment. We want to attract other funds, both local and external, to the region so that they can invest in other kinds of companies. Besides, we have this company, this connection with other markets. It's a company called Loom, a brother company. It works for Latin American companies pushed by impact. We that work through digital platforms. To these services that I have mentioned, we have worked with over 3,300 small companies in all these countries. We see how they grow in sales and in jobs and the people they impact. We want to work with companies that can have an impact on their context. In the context of what Alterna is, we created the program Chromatica. It's a creation of companies of impact for a more creative economy. Why are we interested in this issue of creative economy? Because we believe that in the sectors of impact, which is the sphere where we work, in that of creative economy is the one that can deal with inequality in a more systemic way. It deals with all the layers of inequality. For example, in economic field, but if we go deeper, there is also in the iceberg of inequality. It also generates capabilities, because reading a book allows us critical thinking, innovation, allows different kinds of intelligence, but it also allows opportunities by fostering social capital of people and the personal development. And one kind of inequality that is not dealt with by other sectors, such as sustainable development or agriculture of added value, is that creative economy, both the production and the consumption of it, is also the equality of recognition. It can generate an identity for myself, either as a woman, as an ethnic minority. It can generate a deeper form of justice, maybe empower me and help me work with my people. Maybe these are issues that we don't deal with other economic sectors, the issue of inequality, and it is very important for us. And there is another reason, and it is the creative economy is crucial. It is a big challenge This is a pun, but work and art don't feed Latin America. This is a sector that in general consists of very big companies, but when we see them, the small ones, 58% of cultural entrepreneurs don't generate enough income to sustain their own expenses. So the culture is always a hobby or a second-hand project, and it's not the center of the life of people. It's a sector that needs a lot of support. Most of the time to start projects, the sources, the funds came from immediate sources. IBD did a study to analyze, to study the creative economy, and it gave a score of 3.5 to creative companies in Latin America. And they die because of a lack of administration and because they don't have a clear idea of the market. We can give them more clarity about these issues. And that's why we have created Chromatica, which started in 2017. And we have aimed for it to become, to have an amplifying effect. Now it is in the whole Latin America. We're trying to work with companies, entrepreneurs, and so that they grow and they bring development to our region. I want to mention two cases of success. We have worked with them. One of them is a house of film production in Guatemala. It produced 3 movies. One of them is called La Llorona. It was received many awards at the international level. It is not a typical thing because the movie industry in Guatemala is not very developed. And there is another one in Colombia called Timbalé, which is interested in working through dance, and it was the winner of Chromatica in the last issue. These are examples of companies that have worked with Chromatica. I wanted to share with you both this program and Alterna that has led this process and that has different services to work with companies of impact and to connect with different companies. And this is where I would leave. Thank you very much, Barbara.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. La verdad que es tan interesante lo que hacen.
Thank you very much. What you have done is so important.
Sebastián Cantuarias, que nos va a contar ahora, porque la verdad.
Now, Sebastián Cantuarias is going to tell us you work with similar issues and you have a very similar public. So I want to share with you. So it's very good. So, Sebastián, welcome.
A contar un poco qué es lo que hacen desde Banca Ética Latinoamericana.
He's going to tell us what you do with Banca Ética Latinoamericana.
Muchas gracias, Bárbara.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm Sebastián Cantuarias. I'm from Santiago, Chile. I'm 43 and I have 3 kids. I'm very happy to have this space for dialogue to talk about creativity, creation, and collaboration. And most of the times I'm invited to talk about ethical banking. And I think it's more important to talk about what we think rather than what we do. And I would like to share with you a couple of questions and perspectives. Can you see my screen? Yes, there it is. Great. So when we talk about ethical banking, we are a Latin American group, Banca Ética Latinoamérica, and we provide loans for impact sector. We can see your screen, but we cannot see the slides yet. Maybe Alejandro, you can help us with that. Maybe you can project yourself.
Sí. Yo pensé que iba a funcionar con mi computador, pero siempre me falla. Les voy a seguir contando mientras cambiamos.
I'm going to keep telling you about it while Alejandro maybe fixes it.
Podemos ir a la segunda lámina, Alejandro, por favor.
Can we go to the second slide?
Un grupo financiero latinoamericano.
So we're a Latin American financial group, And we work providing structured loans because we take the time to understand the needs of the company to then provide them a loan that they can make the most of. And there are some, for some institutions that have a positive impact. At the moment, we have 3 offices, one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in Rio de la Plata, in Uruguay, and Pacifico Sur office. And in the future, we have the future office in Mexico for Mesoamerica, and hopefully also in Bogota, Colombia. So we're working with this logic of having positive impact and providing credit. If we look at what Katia showed us in the 5 stages, we have we're in the middle. And we are mostly working with providing loans. That means money that has to be given back. And when we talk about what we do, we say that we help money circulate between the different stakeholders, companies, and having the money and institutions in the creative sector. For example, when we talk about water, we have this image that is quite common in ourselves, waterfall, for example. So our idea is also to make money flow as water does, nourishing the economy and leading to positive impact. And we see money as water. If we let it still for too long, it's going to go bad. If you're interested in what we do, you can go to our website. But most of all, I would like to talk about what we think. And some of our questions as well. When we think about investment and debt and investing funds in Latin America, I think we have to shift our perspective. We usually have the traditional idea of Latin America as a poor region. But I think it's also important to think about the loss of biodiversity and the growth of urban sectors. And I'm interested in changing that perspective because there's been this romanticization of the female exploited worker in the Latin America, the idea of Latin America as this poor producer and the indigenous poor population. So I would like to invite you to see things from the biodiversity we have and this shift into more urban areas so that we think of Latin America as a place of richness and wealth in terms of resources and challenges. So when we talk about structural challenges in the Latin American society, this is a map that I would like to share with you. As I was saying, we're aiming to change perspective and narrative of poor Latin America. So, for example, on the right side, you can see the inequity challenges. In Latin America, we have wealth, but we have some of the more unequal countries in the world, like Brazil, Colombia. I would say that in Chile, we are not so good in soccer, but we're very good at inequality. And that applies a lot to life in cities. So when we talk about inequality, when we talk about water, it has to do with inequality, but also climate change. And also has to do with bioforestry. And in Latin America, we produce most of the food for the world. We are already using toxic products to grow our crops. So that affects not only us, but everyone. I'm trying to provoke challenging ideas in you. And this idea of inequality and climate change are two sides of the same coin. And that's my invitation to you, to look at things from this perspective, so that we move forward from that old-fashioned perspective, from this romantic idea of Latin America as a poor region, but now to see the present and future challenges. And having said this, what are we doing now? We finance through debt, and we finance at three levels, with education and culture, social development, and environment. These areas they have not necessarily to do with triple impact. No, we're looking at things as the different phases of human beings, or different aspects. For example, the potential for human beings to be creative, to have education, to have culture, spirituality. We want to fund that part of human beings when we talk about human dignity. I like to say that we want to fund human beings in their whole essence. Now, talking about social development, we want to fund the relationship between human beings. What has to do with human rights, for example, equality, access to opportunities. And the last one has to do with the relationship between human beings and the environment, with the nature, with production. From that, we have these three areas that finance these 9 challenges of the Latin American society. And they can break down into 120 subsectors. So there we have a bank of segments where we can work. So on the side of education and culture, we're looking for nurseries, schools, high schools, elder education centers. And in there, we have a second sector, which is the creative industry, funding in music, cinema, theater, etc. In that sector, we have a vital contradiction, which is the creative, because we call it creative industry, but from our perspective, creativity is not really an industry. It doesn't have to do with competing. It has to do with that inherent need of human beings to be creative. And with that idea, we want to break that mindset that we are always looking to compete. And this creative industry is kind of awkward to us, because it goes against this, there are two contradicting concepts. Also, we would like to invest other aspects of human good quality of living, like transport, etc. So first we have creativity, the freedom to create as well, and living in peace, which is related to development, social development programs, and then environmental, which has to do with recycling, circular economy, efficiency of the waste management systems. So if you look at this, what we're trying to do based on this question or provocation is to invite you to think about Latin America in a different way, to think about it from a dignified perspective, thinking that we as human beings have the capacity and the right, should have the right to create with dignity. So we would like to invite you to think that in the financial sector we can improve quality of living and dignity through financial support and impact investing. So from this idea of human dignity, we're trying to go into the heart of the financial system where somehow we have lost human dignity. And we started thinking about figures. So we want to bring back this idea of human dignity and the concept that human beings are creative and are always looking forward to building meaningful connections. So more than a presentation, I would say, I was more interested in raising these questions to you. Thank you. Great presentation. And yes, that's the challenge, to raise questions that invite us to think differently. One of the interesting things about this panel is that it is a little example of the ecosystem in the creative industry. For example, we have a multilateral institution that works with different countries, that is doing research and is trying to understand how to measure investment, because investment to become more positively impactful is based on establishing metrics to see what result we actually want to see. Also, the role of Alterna is interesting because they help small entrepreneurs to do their work in startups, and also the role of Latin American ethical banking that is focused on thriving and seeing a thriving creative sector. So now I would like to invite our panelists to start this dialogue based on the questions that I would like to raise. For Ekaterina, I don't know if everyone is here. Great. Ekaterina, I'm going to speak in Spanish, but we have the simultaneous interpretation. We know that OECD's role is very important. We have we know that you have great trajectory, and it has helped connect development between different member countries. I understand that creative economy is a new topic, and I know that in Latin America you're working with the case of Colombia, so maybe you can share that with us, because I think that there we can see in more concrete way what is happening to facilitate the conditions for this creative economy to grow with different stakeholders at an international level.
Yes, of course. Well, Colombia is an extremely interesting case for us. Well, our review is still not finished. We're sort of halfway through, but what we already see is the uniqueness of Colombia model. Of course, well, it's nothing new for you, but it's very new for OECD countries. And in fact, something that we sort of preach and advocate for mainstream culture across different policy portfolios as part of your economic development strategy. This is something that has already happened in Colombia. Colombia has a very comprehensive policy framework. Culture is part of the National Development Plan. There is this policy framework around the 7 I's, distributing a little bit the responsibilities across a lot of ministries. So such a mainstreamed and comprehensive approach, I'm from the top of my head, I can't even think where else in OECD countries this is happening. What's also interesting is this focus on, well, one of the I's is information. So it's data on measuring the creative sectors. And okay, well, definitions can vary from country to country, but it's amazing to see that Colombia really invests at national level into measuring this through the satellite accounts. well, many countries have satellite accounts, but not many are updating them regularly, and not many go down to creating satellite accounts for regions and cities as well. Well, this is still work in progress, but still it's very interesting. And when we say mainstreamed across different policies, well, maybe I wanted to mention the role of the National Training Service. Well, it's a very old, robust service which is present across the country, but they integrate the objectives of the cultural and creative sectors. So they provide obviously training for them. So it's a bit of specific training, not just a general training everyone can apply to, and also business startup support. So for the creative sectors. So that's very interesting. Quite sophisticated tax incentives, and also this the role of Co-Crea in supporting the local creative districts, for orange development zones there. Also something very, very interesting for other countries to learn about, well, and many new things, other things as well. So a lot to learn about. But maybe, Barbara, before I stop, I wanted maybe to throw in another topic that came to my mind when I was listening to colleagues. And maybe one of the things that is important and that we're also trying to underline is that, of course, in these sectors, the business models and the motivations are quite diverse. So, well, intrinsic motivations, not-for-profit, and you would support these parts of cultural sectors through public grants, public subsidies, and then more market-oriented, and that's the market can maybe help them or be a source of money for them. But what we maybe miss sometimes in this balance is that, in fact, this core cultural are a research and development laboratory for the others. So when people are thinking that, let's maybe reduce the public funding a little bit, and that's the market-oriented sectors grow, in fact, you are killing the research and development laboratory for these more market-oriented creative sectors. So just a thought I wanted to throw in for the discussion.
Está muy bien eso que decís, y es así. Y lo que nos pasa también es que muchas de las cosas que miden las otras economías, las nuevas economías de otras áreas, hay muchos diseñadores o personas.
There are many designers or people from the world of culture that are working for these different sectors. This is a very interesting thing to make those connections and to see the contributions that the creative economy has made. If I understood well, that's what you are referring to, right?
Yes, that's as well, yeah. The people who bring their ideas across sectors as well, yeah.
Bueno, vamos a ir con una pregunta también ahora para Ana Gabriela, que tiene que
Well, now I would like to go to another question for Ana Gabriela. Maybe you anticipated a little bit about this financing and how you accompany some cultural entrepreneurs from Central America, but maybe tell us a little bit more about how you work with this kind of funding, how you work with entrepreneurs, what is the process like, and what is the vision that you have, where are you aiming for, where do you want to get?
Nada, ¿dónde quieren llegar con el camino que están recorriendo, no?
With this path you are walking along. Well, Barbara, thank you very much.
Sí, bueno, nosotros en realidad no empezamos.
Yes, well, we didn't start as a fund. Really, we were at first we were Alterna.
Lo que vemos es que
And then what we see is that when we started 10 years ago, many people talk about incubation, about acceleration, but what we used to say, how adapted are these models for the company Weave of Central America, which has many challenges as many other countries, but in certain areas, the challenges are a lot bigger. So we started working with entrepreneurs. That's why we talk about cultivating and not accelerating or incubating. because we see that we need cycles. It is necessary to go back, and it's okay. Because if you accelerate, you generally are connected with a source of funding. And it only takes a very small group which are more ready to be connected. But those structures and that kind of funding, that ecosystem in Central America does not exist. Well, I'm talking about 10 years ago. So we started working on this issue of cultivating, working with companies. We said we're not going to find unicorns because we don't find them. We're not going to find them in this ecosystem, but we can work as a horde of buffaloes. And this is our idea and approach in the region, in an area where public funding is a lot more challenging than in other spaces. Because maybe the change can come from a little bit more of market. And one of the challenges that companies mention permanently is that we don't have access to funding and we don't have access to funding. But there is funding, there are many funds. The banks have a lot of funds. So the problem is not a lack of money. The problem is connecting the companies. Maybe they are connecting banks and money. Maybe they're looking for other kinds of companies, or the companies are looking for other kind of funding. There is no connection. We're looking for a way to connect them with banks and with other funds. And there is an issue that goes beyond that. And it is that even though there is funding, this funding is not adapted to the real needs of the companies in the real stages where they are. So that's where we decided to release a first pilot that is Catalyzer, supported with the big lab, and we decided to experiment with different companies in very early stages to see what happens. We started with this fund, we did Catalyzer fund with 500,000 funds to fund 20 companies. And the thing is that all the companies paid us. So what is the difference with Catalyzer? Well, yeah, there are credits, and it's not a grant, it's a credit. You have to pay. But first, we don't ask for a guarantee that is not typical here. They ask you for a mortgage of your house, your dog, and everything if you want a credit for your company. So the first thing is, what kind of guarantee do we need? Of course, they are coming from a process of cultivation with Alterna. There is a moment of trust. So we work with people, and there is a trust between people, and that is the guarantee that we need from the people. And the other thing is that we understand that these companies in early stages, they don't have a source of cash that is very clear. Sometimes they can do it, sometimes they can't. So another thing that we thought about with Catalyzer, so it was the thing was loans that had interests according to the incomes. So if there is a flexibility, so 1 month maybe you have more income than other month, and that was very important for companies. So what we did is we created a credit committee so that it wouldn't be us who made the decision of giving credit, and so it was another fund that analyzed the potential. So what I want to show is that it is profitable, not only economically, but also socially, to invest in these kinds of companies so that they can have more product. We have a broader spectrum of funding we want to grow, but we need this area to develop a lot more. So that is the focus. I wanted to focus on the issue of funding. And you, Sebastián, what is your approach on this? I like this look on the opportunities of Latin America, the general opportunities, and in terms of creative economy in particular. Yesterday, when we got together to organize this panel, we were talking about tickets. What is the average value of tickets in the sector of creative economy? They are a little bit below the rest of the sectors. What kind of dialogue is there between sectors? I would like you to tell us a little bit of the experience that other countries are having now, because in general, in the cultural sector, it's still a lot smaller, so it needs another kind of attention from the one needed from other areas, in fact, to generate return. What's your perspective? Well, I was muted, I'm sorry. Well, there's something that Katia said that it was very interesting. But she didn't say it just like that, but I'm basing myself on that. We have financial instruments or investments that have a logic, a certain paradigm, the one from the bank, from the industry of investment. There are certain paradigms from the world, and this is part of what the world has. I don't intend to generate a polemic here. I mean, Chile is a country where there are many areas of environmental sacrifice. And then the consumer society and the over debts, really high debts of people. When you go to the creative sector, there are certain paradigms that are very different from the ones of the financial sector. The same thing happens when you go to the agricultural sector or to the recycling sector or the housing, the social housing sector, the NGOs sector. So one crucial issue of this impact economy in Latin America is that it is very heterogeneous. And the financial industry, on the other hand, is very homogeneous in its paradigms and in its ways to work. There is some kind of a cultural clash that is becoming some kind of a cultural syncretism where the financial culture is beginning to understand how can I participate from the creative economy, and the creative economy is beginning to understand how much of what it is doing is developed through investments, or how much is developed through debt, and there is a match between those things. There is the creative economy and the financial industry, and this is only emerging, and it is emerging from a very interesting thing. It is partially emerging from the strength of the industry, from digital industries. Part of the development of digital Latin American culture is based on the series developed for Netflix. Many have been developed in Colombia, for example. They are wonderful, and also the music, art direction, everything that revolves around audiovisual production is associated with digital economy. So this is very important because the digital economy is right there. So it is important to understand that there is more space to invest each time. We have to keep our look fresh in respect to how much are we investing to produce audiovisual industry so that people don't sleep, or are we generating audiovisual industry so that we can broaden the horizon of how we look at the world? How much of the resurgence of the Latin American resurgence of Latin America is associated with culture, and I'm sure about it because a lot of the strength of the cultural industries, creative industries, is associated with that. But we sleep a lot less every day because we stay sleeping. We don't sleep because we're watching the series and everything. So this is dehumanizing us. So the balance between humanization and dehumanization created by creative industries, and the synergy between financial industry and creative industry, and we shouldn't miss the data industry from this. These are very important things that we are seeing now. I made you a little dizzy, but these are these images I want to share.
Yes, we see that there's a new trend, and the digital economy had this trend as well. And this reminds me of something that we have discussed yesterday around digitalization, and how new sectors that are based on digital economy, and there's other sectors like, for example, craftsmanship. So that invites us to think about the industry differently. But it's true that in the audiovisual industry, everything that has to do with the video games, etc., all this sports economy, the esports, is creating a new niche, and it all is part of the creative industry.
Hay que apoyarlo, Sebastián.
And it is true that we have to support them, Sebastián. Yes, we have to accompany them. Yes, you're right.
También está todo lo que tiene que ver con el acceso a los medios de pago.
Also, there is, we have to discuss about access to payment, pay-per-view content, or content makers who charge so that you can have access to it, or craftsmen and women who make their products, their artisanal products physically, but they have a website where you can order the product online. So it's important to consider that when we talk about the inequality challenges and the challenges in terms of corruption, for example, they are related to the creative industry, because now people are more critical of the political scenario thanks to the action of the creative industry. Because creative industry, it generates action, but at the same time, it's taking hours of sleep from us because we're too entertained. Yes, so we have to take that into consideration. Yes, not all creative action is not going to have a positive impact all the time. We know that the lyrics in some genres of music are degrading, but we also have to think of that creative industry that is generating change, and we can boost that sector. So we should ask ourselves how we can support those creative sectors that are smaller to compared by this dominant Netflix, for example. How can we work so that there's more partnership, there's more collaboration in Latin America? And we need to create a platform to help these smaller creatives. And we should take advantage of this digital era, because we can now have access to lending, to credits, even being in a very remote place. So let's maybe focus on what has a positive impact. It's okay to have a negative impact. It happens as well. And that's a big difference that separates us from impact investment, where you have the capital is focused on positive assets. Because it's one thing to have a commercial transaction where you have and you give and take no matter what the product is, but it's different from saying that we're trying to move capital where there is more investment on taking care of the people and the planet. Because we understand that we need to take care of people and take care of our planet. Of course, those are investments that are more in the long term, and those are investments that inside themselves, capital can be shifting, taking different shapes, because at the beginning it can be more subsidized capital, and then moves to another direction and it becomes more sustainable. So that's the umbrella of impact investing. And I celebrate the fact that we're discussing this right now, because that's the direction we would like things to have. Because we know that creative industry can go from culture to gastronomy to tourism and the media. So they go beyond the traditional categories like music, audiovisual, design, architecture. We have such a wide realm of categories where we can make this kind of investment grow so that we have a capital that has values with it. Yes, Barbara, and I think that the role that investment can have beyond being capital, I think that it can raise awareness among companies about the impact that they can have, because if you provide a loan and you also request the institution to have accountability of what happened with that money, what is the projection of that money, what's going to be the positive impact. That's what we try to do in Alterna. We ask our partners about their production, about their impact as well, so that there's more responsibility there. We have a few minutes left, 8 minutes left. Maybe we can give the floor to the audience. And Alejandro, you can help me with that because I can't see anyone besides the panel members. So I would like to invite the audience to raise questions for specific panel members if they want to, or I would like also to invite the panel members to ask questions to each other if you feel like it. Okay, here we are.
Buenas, nuevamente soy Victoria Contreras.
Hi, I'm Victoria Contreras, Director of Conecta Cultura. I don't know about the audience over there, but I was at the background here. I was very excited following this very interesting debate. Thank you, Barbara, for being the moderator. It's great that we discussed about what we want to see more in Latin America, which is cultural democracy. And to see how, by being diverse, we can also respect each other. I'm also very grateful to the fact that Ekaterina had this clear perspective about the work that is being done by the OECD, but also she talked about the Colombian case. Whether we like it or no, what we see in the Colombian case is that it has been like a historical milestone in the continent, because it's thanks to a regulation that was created in the Colombian Republic, and thanks to a stand of a position of investing in the sector, and that generates a change. And also what Gabriela said about the work in financing and how we can support other entrepreneurs so they understand the system. We tend to criticize the banking system, but of course we also can have access to financing from that sector. And also thank you, Sebastian, for talking about ethical banking, because you broadened our perspective and invited us to see the possibility of having ethical banking that goes against those challenges that we have to face in Latin America. And also you invited us to think about creative industries in a different way. For example, you said, I'm not comfortable with the traditional concept, and you raised questions about the traditional concepts, and you invited us to challenge those ideas. I worked with Loma Nune community in Chile a few months ago, and with another colleague from the Ministry of Creative Economy. And when we talked with people in Peñalolén, they said, we're very interested in working in creative economy, but we don't feel confident with that concept. We would like to create our own concept. And I think that there is potential for dialogue and also it's important for us to know what our clear contribution is going to be, and also to understand clearly what our role is. I don't say that other options are not possible, but what we could see throughout this panel was that multiplicity, diversity is important for dialogue. And thank you so much for your different perspectives, because that helps us have more cultural democracy. I think that this encounter has been thoroughly planned so that we can have this type of diversity. I can see that from the curatorship of this event and during the previous meetings, we wanted to showcase the diversity that is an important component of our sector. Also, we see that we are affected by many aspects, like the cultural aspect, economic aspect, and the pandemic as well, though it's not over. So maybe the question is, what do we want to build starting from now? And I think this encounter gives us the possibility to do so. I would like to remind you that today we talked about impact investing and creative synergy. Yesterday we talked about digital synergy. And we have talked today about the different funding systems. And we had a very interesting introduction capsule at the beginning of this meeting. And I would say that Sinergia Creativa was really paying attention to showcase this diversity that is so important. And I would like to thank the panel members and our moderator, Barbara Rossi, who's and a cultural entrepreneur. And I would also like to thank Ana Gabriela Chinchilla, Director of Strategic Alliances from Alterna, Sebastián Cantuarias, Executive Director of Latin American Ethical Banking from Chile, and Ekaterina Travinka, Coordinator of Culture, Creative Industries and Local Development from the OECD in France. Also, I would like to thank all the audience members who joined us today, and I would like to go to move on and show you the results of the survey. And the question was, how much capital would you invest in a creative project with the environment? Maybe we can share the screen. And in the meantime, I would like to tell you that tomorrow we have the last day of creative synergy cycles. And tomorrow we're going to talk about productive synergy, how we can work with other sectors. And we'll talk about the important role of the creative industry in other industries as well. We're going to have a representative of the IDB, and we're going to have an interesting capsule with artists who were recorded from Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, etc. And we'll also have Cecilia Cardona, who's the leader of Power in Colombia. So it's going to be a very interesting last day. Don't miss it. Remember that you can join us on YouTube, Sinergia Creativa. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and our website. Remember that to join us, you only have to register. And also we have, well, the website is www.sinergiacreativa.org. And now we can show the results of the survey.
Este porcentaje de cuánto se estarían dispuestos, digamos, a invertir en un proyecto creativo que hable o apoye las nociones del medio ambiente.
Creative project that supports ideas related with the environment. Here it is.
El 25%
As you can see that 25%, the blue bar is willing to invest on up to $50, 28%, the pink bar between $50 and $100, the red bar is 28% between $100 and $500, and 19%, the yellow bar, is above $500. Well, so we can see with these bars, this small universe that participated, that there is a critical consciousness and the possibility of investing in cultural projects that contribute to the issue of the environment and the contrarrest global climate change. I thank the panelists very much, the organizers from Sinergia Creativa, and all of the people who have been following us in the social media, who are connected today. Thanks a lot for your participation, and I wish you all a good day. I want to thank you for your ideas, your thoughts, for this creative synergy to create solutions that are very necessary for our sector. Thank you very much. My name is Victoria Contreras, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Victoria. Before and in order to close this panel, I would like each of the panelists to say goodbye. I think Ana Gabriela has something to share, something that she's going to launch in a few days. So maybe each one of you wants to give a final message. Now, I'm your fan number one. I think the creative economy is a very fertile terrain, and if we keep on going that way, we're going to have a creative economy that is going to be more productive. And if we focus on development and production, I think that is a place where we can see very positive impact in Latin America, in different territories and different people who we work with. So I would like to take a round with you, and so that you can give a final message.
Caterina, maybe you want to start?
Yes.
Caterina, maybe you want to start?
Sure. Well, an incredibly interesting panel, and I hope to stay in touch with my colleague panelists to learn more and to understand your perspectives on the issues. And maybe I just wanted to mention as well that this Friday we're launching a report, an OECD report on, which is called Culture Fix, Creative People, Places and Industries, which provides an overview of trends and issues in creative sectors across OECD countries. So
it would be great if afterward we can share it with the whole audience and with the whole...
Yeah, we'll be happy to, absolutely. So that's a big one for us, and hopefully useful for some as well.
For us.
Exactly, hopefully.
Ana Gabriela.
Sí, muchas gracias Bárbara por el espacio, muchas gracias a
Well, thanks a lot for the space, and thanks to Sinergia Creativa for the invitation. It was very important for me to hear the other presentations. Yeah, I just want to tell you that in July we're going to release the next call from Chromatica, which is aimed at creative companies. It is open to the whole Latin America, so we want you to be watching the social media of Chromatica, and so you can enter this call, join this call, and thank you very much for this space. Sebastián, it's your turn to close.
Sí, me dejaron con el cierre y me pillaron comiendo torta.
Wow, this is a close, and you caught me eating cake.
Me llegó una torta vegana exquisita.
It was a vegan cake that I just received. It's exquisite, and while I was eating it, I was thinking that the investment of impact, something that is related with the language of industry or financial industry, and we talk about global issues, but impact, investment, and I want to leave this, is also associated with our individual actions, with what we consume, what we eat, what we buy, where we save,
hasta si vamos o no vamos a votar.
It's even involved in like if we go, how we deal with the elections in our own countries. So all this change in the world is also associated with changing ourselves. So we have to think of how we are as individuals. Our individual actions in economy, in democracy, are important for the investment of impact in our own personal lives. Okay, thank you very much. Nothing to add. Thank you very much to all of you. It's a great panel. Thank you, Sinergia Creativa. I will see you around, and goodbye. Thank you very much.
Bueno, finalizamos este segundo día. Estamos muy agradecidos.
Let's finish this second day. We're finishing the second day now. Thank you very much to all of you. We want to remind you that tomorrow is the third day and the final day. Please get connected from www.sinergiacreativa.org. This is from our channels in YouTube and from the different social media through Instagram. Please don't miss it. Tomorrow we will deal with productive synergy. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.